Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Heartway Pastor and Missionary Caregiver Podcast. This is Jody Vesley here again. And today we're joined by our special guest via Zoom, Eric Sutton, who's pastor of New Home Missionary Baptist Church in Wetumpka, Alabama, and also the current president of the ABA, right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so we're excited to have you today, Eric. And I've noticed that New Home, they've done a really good job, and they do a really good job in staying involved with missionaries and partnering with missionaries and caring for missionaries and supporting them. And so I'm really glad you're here today with us. Maybe you can provide us with some insight or things to think on, at least for churches and missions and missionaries and pastors. And so the topic today for the podcast is missions and the church. And so missions in the church is absolutely vital. Missions and the church are connected. One isn't separate from the other. They work together. The Great Commission was given to the church. And so churches are to be actively involved in making disciples of all nations, locally and nationally and worldwide, by sending out missionaries and partnering with them. And so over the past several years, I've noticed that pastors and churches, some of them, have some struggles in getting their church involved with missions more. Maybe they've been burned in the past by some missionaries. Maybe they want to focus more of their resources locally, and they don't know how to divvy that up between local and worldwide. Maybe they have one or two places they're particularly passionate about, like a specific country, and they put everything in that place only and not much more beyond that. And so as a result, missionaries that go around and they do deputation and they try to raise support and share their burden and their call and their vision, they sometimes face big difficulties, right? If churches don't have a vision for wherever they're called to or the type of work they're called to, and so or maybe the pastor just doesn't have the same passion for missions as other pastors might. And so some missionaries, because of that, it takes them a while to build support on deputation. And it can be a process. And so, pastors and churches struggle sometimes in that they're very limited in their vision and in terms of the Great Commission, and that affects their faith, their vision, and their involvement in doing the Great Commission. And of course, I don't think New Home is like that. I think you guys have done a great job, and I've gotten to experience that as a partner of y'all's, and been really blessed because of that. So today we're gonna specifically dive in with Eric over some of the difficulties that pastors face getting their churches more mission minded, and so we're gonna look at also how Pastor Eric Sutton and New Home have developed a passion for missions, and here's some of the benefits for churches, and specifically in New Home's case, as they became more interested and more involved in missions and continue to do so. And so I know there are a couple of hangups that pastors deal with in missions. One is getting their church on board with a vision for missions all over the world. And another, and maybe you could point out more, but another is getting their church to have faith that God will provide as they support missions financially more and more, even if they don't think that's possible. And so how would you advise pastors with these specific concerns and maybe some others that I haven't pointed out?
Well, I think that, first of all, thank you, Jody, for inviting me to be a part of this podcast. I appreciate it. And it's been a joy and privilege to support and stand with your family. I remember back you came to, I think it was our first missions revival.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In 2012. And you were just getting started, ready to go to Russia. And I specifically remember the very elaborate display booth that you had.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was a puzzle that you had to put together. I think it took
That's right.
hours to put it together. And then I remember the next time you came back, you had a banner, and I asked what happened. And so I appreciate us having the privilege to be with y'all this long. So as far as some hangups and how do you get a church on board, I was privileged to grow up in a church that was mission-minded. Lynn Rayburn was my pastor until I was 8 months old, so I don't remember much from those days. And then Jim Hankins came, and he was there until I was 8, and then Jim Harris has been there ever since, so 32 years or so. But we always had missionaries come through. We were sponsoring church for the Walter Goulding for years in Costa Rica. So I grew up in that environment. My mom was the missions treasurer. So, she wrote the checks and collected the money. And I remember as a kid going up after Sunday morning service and sorting through the offering and putting the mission checks in one pile, So as long as I can remember, I've been involved with churches that did missions. When I came to New Home, we really prayed. We give 10% to missions church, which is wonderful if that's what you can do. But over the years, we have really grown that. We do more. Our philosophy is different than that now. We still give 10% plus faith promise. But I think one of the things that has helped, there really are, I guess, two different keys that are important. One is it starts at the top. The pastor has to love missionaries, love missions, and has to make a big deal about it. A pastor wants his church to do more. He has to make a big deal about missionaries. When a missionary comes to present the work, celebrate that. Make a big about, tonight we're going to have a mission. Make sure you come back. Tell a little bit about who the missionary is and really build it up that it's not just, well, we have a missionary tonight. Y'all come back. No, we have the privilege to have a missionary, and he has given his life, and this is where he's at. This is who his family is. This is what his work is. And so I think it all starts with that. But the other thing, which is just as important, you have to find a way to help your people develop a relationship with missionaries. That's the key. As long as, Jody Vesley is just a name on a financial report every month that the church gets, the church isn't going to be excited about whatever you're doing. So how do you do that? How do you get to build a relationship? Well, it's got to be more than just have Jody come in and preach and he sets up a table for 30 minutes before and after. Anything I say, you've been on the other side of those things. I've just been on the pastor side of those things. But those people that come in for one service usually aren't the people that are picked up on support. They're not the people that our church remembers. So bring in a family over the weekend, do a missions revival, and put the missionary in somebody's home and let them spend a night or two or three. That does have some problems, I understand. You got to make sure, is there Wi-Fi? Because the kids may need it for school. The missionary might be in school. Hey, the kids just might need Netflix to go to sleep at night. So those issues, are there animals? So there's issues I know. But what's going to happen, at least what my people have told me, is either over a meal or after the service, everybody's going to kind of gather in the living room and you're going to talk and maybe till 1 o'clock in the morning, and a relationship is established and there are Facebook friends are made. You get the cell phone number because you got to make sure they have time to get to the house. And so, but when the missionary leaves and the missionary has some need that arises, we've had this happen where somebody speaks up at the end of a service. Even it's not even a business meeting. They just speak up and say, "Hey, brother so-and-so, I saw they're washing clothes at the laundromat because their washing machine went out. Can't we buy them a washing machine?" Well, that doesn't happen because you came through one time. It's because there was a relationship that was established. And so I really believe that if you want your church to get the vision, it's most of the time happens when they fall in love with the missionary and a relationship established. So I think those are really the key things. You have to, as a pastor, make a big deal about it. And then the people have to be in environments where they can become a friend to the missionary And if they love the missionary, they're going to love where they're at. They're going to love the family, and they're going to want to do for their friend who is the missionary.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, we have been on the receiving end of that. And I think that's one of the things that makes New Home unique is that we do, when we have been over there, we've spent adequate time with the people, especially during the missions conference. And maybe you could speak more on that. What role have missions conferences or whatever you guys call them? Every church has a different name for them, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And what role have those played in helping your church become more interested in missions and developing those relationships? Because I know from firsthand experience, we would prefer any day to spend or to stay, if someone would have us into their home, to stay with them, because we know that the chance of us developing a friendship and a relationship is just so much greater than if we're just seeing them during short periods or not seeing them because we're not around them. And so thanks for creating that atmosphere for missionaries and your church members that we can have that opportunity to build those relationships. And another thing you pointed out before we get into the missions conference idea is the mindset of it being a privilege to have a missionary. Missionaries appreciate that. I can tell you that we appreciate that. If you can put that into your heart and your mind for you personally to have that and to put that into your church mentality too is a huge difference. It's just completely different where we don't feel like we're a burden coming in, but instead we feel welcome. And I think that's a big difference. And so it's a lot more pleasing, I think, for everyone on both sides when it's viewed that way. And so I appreciate that too. But on the topic of missions conferences, what role do you think those have played in your church and building that interest?
Game changer. We started in 2012, and the way it began was two of our church members who had been to a missions conference at a church in the next town over. They came and asked, could we do one? And I had attended them, but I've never hosted one, never been in a church that did a missions conference. So we sat down with a pen and a piece of paper and said, okay, what does this look like? Our goal was to be a blessing to the missionary, to just for a few days treat them like kings and queens, and encourage them in return for us to be encouraged and challenged. So we just said, Sunday morning, what do you do? Sunday night, what does it look like? And so we went through every day. We have activities during the days, the services at night. We tried to, and we still do, we have the Sunday school classes, do the meals. And that's not just provide the meal, but you come and you eat with the missionaries. We understand that not everybody can go shooting on Monday. Some people have to work. Mm-hmm. But if we can have people from the church go to those things, that'll help. But if you can't, we provide the opportunities at night. I think it was our second year where one of the ladies came out and she said, preacher, this isn't a conference. This is a revival. And so we changed the name of it. It's now our revival. And I still catch myself sometimes calling it a conference, but it's really, it's more the idea of what can we do to help the missionary. And there's a lot of things that we try to do. I know it puts a missionary in puts them in an uncomfortable position because you don't want to have attention on you. We don't want, we used to go to the mall shopping, and my first thought was, I don't care what you buy. You buy a suit, buy a dress for the ladies, whatever you need. We'll all go up to the counter and I'll just pay for it. Well, somebody pointed out to me that, you know how uncomfortable that is because you don't know, am I spending too much? What should I not? So then we just changed it and we just give you cash and do with it. But so we've learned through the years, because we don't want, in blessing the missionary, encouraging, we don't want to make you uncomfortable or put you in a position where, what do I do? What do I not do? But I guess New Home's really unique in that when we say, hey, we don't really don't care what you do with it. We really don't. This past year, one of the missionaries asked me, because we provide a T-shirt. He said, "What day do we wear the shirts?" And I said, there is no day. He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Listen, there's no photo op. That's I'll only give you a T-shirt." We did it just so you'll remember us, and hopefully it'll be a fond memory. But what it's done for our people is, again, it's helped them to absolutely fall in love with the missionaries. That by the time the revival ends on Wednesday night, you have to run people out of church because they don't want the missionary to leave. And so it has, I think about it this way, missions revival fueled our interest in missions, and then Faith Promise helped to fund it. And so those two things have really transformed what God's been able to do through us. Missions revival and Faith Promise.
That's really good. So like, besides missions revival and Faith Promise, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on Faith Promise, because I still surprisingly run into people who aren't that familiar with it or have misconceptions of it. How has New Home continued to develop that interest they have in missions, and how are they doing so now, keep going forward with it? I mean, I assume some of it is related to Faith Promise and the missions conference still. Anything on top of that, and feel free to elaborate on Faith Promise.
Yeah, so what has happened is not necessarily programs or things that we've done on a church level. It's been more ripple effect at this point. Missions revival is the big, it's the tent peg everything rests on as far as the growing our missions program. But what's happened is, like a few years ago, Julie Sheff was here with Eyes on Christ, and she spoke to the Awana kids. So for a couple of years, their Awana offering went to buy glasses. And that's what they wanted to spend it on, give it to Julie. Now her offering is going to provide birthday gifts for missionary kids. We've had ladies step up and they wanted to send cards to missionary wives. And so what's happened is, because of the mechanism of a missions revival going and you bringing missionaries in, people have picked up individual ministries that are related to missions. And that has sparked then more people, hey, I could write a card. I can do, So we haven't added really anything as far as what we do. We give the Thanksgiving missions offering. We have a once a quarter business meeting, and in those meetings we give to certain needs, which is just, it's incredible, because what Faith Promise has allowed us to do, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's allowed us to go from giving just 10%. On average, when I first came here, it was about $36,000 to $42,000 a year to missions, and that was 10%. And missionary comes in, you receive an offering. Anything mission related, we put in that pot. But Faith Promise allowed us. We started in 2015. We have given a little over $1 million to missions since then. Wow. And what that was just extra money that people were giving. And I know a lot of people, some people don't understand the concept of Faith Promise mission giving. Is it biblical? I would challenge you to go and read 2 Corinthians 8, 9, and 10 and explain to me how the churches of Macedonia, who give beyond their power out of deep poverty, how is that anything but giving by faith? Paul told them that they are doing well in knowledge and a lot of things, but he encouraged them to excel in this grace also, which is giving by faith. And then at the end of chapter 10, Paul said that when, and I think this is the key to understanding all, when your faith is increased, then we will be able to preach the gospel in regions beyond you. So how is it that the Corinthians' faith increasing equals Paul's ability to preach in further regions? The only way that's possible is through their faith giving. And so when they ask God to give more to missions through them, then Paul can preach more. So I've taught our people that the limitation on missionaries is often financial, and have considered that maybe the limitation on the missionary is really a lack of our faith. And, I've heard all kinds of definitions for faith promise, and but I believe it's just, you pray, you ask the Lord, what do you want me to give in the upcoming year? And if the Lord lays an amount on your heart and you promise to give it, when the offering time comes, if you have the money, give it. If you don't give it. I tell our folks, don't put your faith promise on a credit card. That's not trusting the Lord. Now, it could be the reason why the money's not there is because you went to Starbucks 3 times this week. So you've got to look at those things too. But our folks have just, when you trust the Lord to give through you to missions, I don't know anything else that grows your faith more than that, because you seek to provide. And then when you see the report from the missionary that 4 souls were saved, a church was established. New Home had a part of that, yes, but you specifically had a part in that, because you out of your own pocket, not just to the general fund, but to missions specifically. And so it has helped us tremendously. We've, well over, I think, something like 70-80% increase in what we've been able to do because of faith promise giving.
Wow, that's awesome. Praise God. We've been on the receiving end of some of those just checks and different things, for even little things like the cards, the Christmas offerings that you guys send. All those things are real big blessings to us. And they're not like, I don't know. I think some people just think, oh yeah, of course churches do that. No, it's not common, but it's a really good thing that we really feel love, we feel care, we feel, like people are there for us and they're with us, and we mean something to them beyond just what we're doing. And so what better way to show that than sending a gift from time to time? And so thank you guys for doing that. I think that's a great way to show love to missionaries, and encourage them. Faith promise, you mentioned the increase in faith that comes from that. I've benefited from that, and I think it's one of the best ways for us to grow our faith. But what other benefits has your church experienced as they have become more interested, involved in missions?
So one of the things, the more that people give financially to missions, the more they are becoming aware of their neighbor across the street. We've got a lady right now that just has a burden for some kids in her Awana class that have never been to church before. And so she goes and she picks them up every week. You see the spiritual development of people. When they start praying for missionaries by name in church service, and then they want to go on a mission trip, visit the missionary on the field. That has been a tremendous blessing to see people who have always been good people, always been faithful church members, but to see passion in their heart over missionaries, to see tears flow down their cheeks as they pray for missionaries, to see them bring a friend to church, or to call and have a burden, ask you to pray for their coworker who is lost, trying to witness to them. All of that is a result of making missions a big deal in the church setting. And so you find that people are much more willing to do mission work at home when they're more aware of mission work abroad. But again, it's just we send checks to these 7 missionaries, and that's mission work. Well, that's not mission work. So it goes back to the preaching ministry of the church through the book of Acts. Preach mission sermons, preferably not topical sermons of what here's my 4 thoughts on missions, but just open the text and let the Bible speak of what the church ought to be doing. And I promise you, somebody in that church is going to say, wait a minute, so why aren't we doing whatever? And that person you need to pour into and let them lead the charge over missions. I could be called somewhere else tomorrow. The Lord could call me home tomorrow, and the missions program is still going to go on because this is their heartbeat. And so it's really developed a spiritual passion and a burden for those around. Has probably been one of the greatest things. And I've shared at the conference I spoke at earlier this year that one of the coolest things to me is that I have some of my best friends are missionaries. But even cooler than that is that I have church members who have missionaries that are their friends. And they know more about some missionaries than I do. Did you know that Brother So-and-so, that this is going on? Man, I hadn't heard that. Did you get the report on Facebook? I was messaging them the other day. And I said, wait a minute, you're messaging them? Yeah, I text them all the time. And it's awesome. It's wonderful to see. But it goes back to relationships and putting your people in a position to meet the missionary and his family, to fall in love with them. And I'm convinced you cannot be a lover of missions and missionaries and wanting to reach out and also not love the Lord and grow in your faith at the same time. I think they go hand in hand.
That's a great point, and I think that's a good closing point. Is that it goes hand in hand with our relationship and our desire, our relationship with missionaries and our desire to keep reaching out and into the world through partnership with missionaries and doing things nationally and locally and doing mission trips and sending support. And then just our connection with that, with our faith and our love for God and our relationship with God and our relationship with missionaries. It's all connected. And so that's a great point. And so you can't really you can't say I'm super proactive on and passionate about the Great Commission if you're not involved in missions in any way.
That's right.
It just doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. And so, this has been really helpful. I think it can be really helpful to reflect on these things and just do a check in our churches and our hearts about where are we at with missions? How do we keep going forward? Are we stuck? Are we still going? And maybe this can inspire some people to get more on track with missions and more involved in missions and reap some of these benefits that you've mentioned from that and not be worried about like running out of money, right? I don't know a church that has done Faith Promise and has run out of money unless they started using those Faith Promise funds for reasons other than missions.
That's right.
And so I appreciate you, Eric. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for sharing with us your experiences and some of your church's experiences in missions. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Jody. I appreciate the opportunity. And I would just say that just take the next step, just one step. You don't have to score a touchdown. Just get a first down in your missions program. I often like to think about the woman who anointed the Lord before his burial, and Judas was all upset about it. And Jesus just said, hey, listen, she has done what she could. And so find something that you can do in the area of missions and for a missionary, and just do what you can. And the Lord will grow your ability to do what you can. And you'll find that you'll look back one day and say, how in the world have we been able to do what we've done? And it'll just simply be because the Lord used you as you did what you can do.
Amen. It's all God through us.
That's right.
Until next time, this has been the Heartway podcast, where we seek to help with issues at the source.